Hey, Keith, my man, I'm so glad that we get to shoot another episode today. And we are going to talk about being fully present. What do you think about
Nice.
that?
What'd you say?
I
No,
said,
just
what do
kidding.
you think about being fully present?
It was a joke.
Oh, man.
Wait,
I
what?
wasn't present enough to catch the joke. Oh, that was good. That was really good. I was thinking like, oh, he really did not hear me. My mic is messing up. Take two. Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually really good, Keith. You're a smart guy, but I'm not used to hearing you be like kind of quick on your feet humor type stuff. That was pretty good.
Oh,
It's pretty good.
yeah. I save all that for my dad jokes to my kids, I suppose.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. That's good. Dad joke.
Yeah, yeah. You're like,
It brings it out in you. That's great.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so one thing I've been thinking about, just when I think about a business, you think about like key things that are really important for like developing a culture. People talk about, you know, who said culture eats strategy for breakfast? Do you know who said that?
Yes.
I think that's the exact
Um,
quote. Drucker? I
yes.
think, yeah, okay. And so I do think a lot about developing a culture that really uh, builds itself, and there's like intentionality. I mean, the place that I often think about when I think about cultures like a Chick-fil-A, you walk in and you just sense like there's intentionality here in the training that has brought about a culture that is just so refreshing to walk into. It's just like, um, they're trained this way, but when just them saying, "Oh, hey, this is my pleasure to take care of you," like that's like, oh, that's intentionality. And I do think that one of the most underrated qualities for transforming, whether it's a home or a workplace, is learning this quality of being fully present. And I think it's even more so powerful today because we just live in a crazy distracted world. So I think we want to take some time to unpack the potential power of being fully present. But I'm curious, Keith, um, do you have any kind of like working definition in your mind, or a way of describing what it looks like to be fully present?
Well, I think you could take the opposite. Think about it from that perspective. What does it mean to not be present? So, what does it mean to be distracted? That's one way of thinking about it. We're most distracted probably today by our phones. I'm always amazed every time I see a movie where there's no phones in it. My kids and I, we just sat down and we watched Spider-Man from 2002, I believe. 2002. That doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was amazing watching that movie and seeing the difference
Mm,
to today culturally in New York City, just seeing the way that people were dressed, the way they were acting. Nobody had phones, heads were up, and what a difference. We have a very different culture today.
yeah.
And I would include myself in that too. Just
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've been
being on the
guilty of, like,
phone.
walking and looking at my
Yeah.
phone, and I had somebody
Yeah.
almost, like, run into me, like, several times in a store recently. People almost run into me because they were, like, looking at their phones walking. It was at the
Yeah.
mall, and I was like,
It's a problem.
"It really is." It's like, wow. But I've had to remind myself, like, "Okay, hey, you're out. Why are you looking at your phone?" You're not like, it's not necessarily like somebody called you or you're sending a text. It's more of like, you're mindlessly picking up your phone. Why can't you just like walk and observe what's going on around you? And I think you've heard this in the business world, and I think it's true. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but people say the greatest like commodity today is getting attention. It's attention is what
Mhm.
you want to get.
Yeah.
And I just think that we're becoming so good at getting attention in different ways, like through the marketing is being honed, and all this kind of stuff to where and like I think even like streaming services like, hey, look, they almost incentivize you like, hey, you were on here for 10 hours. That's great. Let's see if we can increase your time. And I'm not sure that it actually
Yeah.
really plays out well for people's mental health. But I think this it really impacts the way that we show up at everything. And if we can really slow down actually some things that are good, like, but they're just become distractions. It's like the good thing became the bad thing because it's distracted me from the very present thing that I'm supposed to be engaging in. It's like, so if you're listening in, we're not saying Netflix is bad, social media is bad, like delete all the apps, let's live the monk life.
Yeah.
It's more of like you getting into the driver's seat and actually controlling things. Like for maybe for a while, we've just kind of lived on impulse and we don't even realize how destructive it is to ourselves, to our own productivity, and our um, our relationships with people. Like just being able to have like a full conversation. It dawned on me not like too long ago, like when um, I'm talking to someone in person. I'm like, oh, hold on. Like, hey, I need to get this phone call. Now, obviously, sometimes I know as business owners, there's a priority that has to be taken. Like, oh, this is a really important call. But I'm talking more in the context of something that's not really that important, but we just learn to like respond to notifications and text. And it's like, wait a second, those can wait. Right now, I'm in a conversation. I'm going to be fully present. And so I just think that's a really powerful thing. But to flesh out kind of what you said, Keith, a little bit more on what being fully present is not. Let me give some words that might like resonate with our audience. First, obviously just distraction. Your attention is pulled into devices, notifications, endless tasks. We just talked about that. Mind wandering. This is your thoughts just drifting to the past. Maybe it's regret,
Mm.
nostalgia, or it drifts to the future. So you're worried about what's going to take place. So you're not in the present. You're talking about being fully present. You're kind of trapped. You're oscillating back and forth between the past, what has happened, and the future, what could happen or what may not happen because you might screw it up, whatever it is, kind of doomsday type thinking. Your mind wandering can keep you from being fully present. Here's another one: autopilot. So you go through routine without awareness. You're doing meetings, but here's a person, maybe it's one of your employees. They come in and they're obviously their body language is showing you that they're not okay. But since you're just kind of like on autopilot, you're not even noticing the people that are in your company. And if you were fully present, you actually could be a big part of helping them feel encouraged and energized for their day, rather than almost completely ignoring, you know, the space of life that they're in. But we can get into the autopilot. Disassociation. No, I think this happens with people who maybe you've hit a lot of discouragement, but you feel detached from your body and you're almost like you're there, but you're not there. And this is almost kind of like it's almost connected to your mind is not where your body is type of thing. So it keeps you from being present. So this could be a past or future orientation, like, oh, this evening I'm going to be doing this special thing and my mind's there. But it also could be like, um, man, I just want to be locationally somewhere different right now, and it's again keeping you from being fully present. Preoccupation is the last one I wanted to share. This is your mind is consumed with problems, stress, or what others think about you, instead of being what do I presently need to accomplish to whatever I however I need to get to that next thing. I need to be that. So if I kind of summarize this, presence basically equals awareness plus engagement with what's happening right now. Awareness plus engagement with whatever's happening right now. So if you want to say, am I fully present? Well, are you aware and are you engaging? A lot of people are. They may have one of those components, like they're engaging, but it's in a space of being unaware, so they're not effective. So there's that. And there's other people who they might start being aware, but they haven't been acting on it yet. So it's not quite the qualities of being fully present. So you need both of those aspects. And so the opposite would be detachment. A distraction plus detachment would be the opposite of being fully present. So hopefully for those listening in, you can kind of say, oh, okay, I actually really struggle with autopilot, or man, I really struggle right now with my mind wandering. Or I'm just honestly, the tyranny of the urgent has distracted me. Every little notification things, I have not gotten a handle on my life in that way. So I go through my day and I often question, what did I actually do today? What did I actually
Hmm.
accomplish? So this is a really a big thing. And so I'm talking a lot here, Keith. I want to hear your inputs. But the way I think about it is if I can master this, not only will it change my productivity, but if I come into a meeting fully present, it will change the dynamic of that meeting. One of the base needs of human psychology is a desire to feel seen and heard. So if you come into a meeting and it's not just me barking out orders, but it's actually like I'm seeing you, I'm asking about your life, I'm present, I'm hearing your concerns. Like it's like, wow, they were really attentive. That person's going to leave in a different mode of thinking than if they had a meeting with an employee or employer rather that was really distracted or didn't seem to care or was on a autopilot. So what I want to suggest is that being fully present actually has this mechanism built in that can change the culture of your workplace. And if not only if you do it yourself as a leader, everything rises and falls on leadership, but if you can train this, if you can build this into your company on how to train on being fully present, it will change your entire company. It would take it to the next level, I think, in multiple ways. What's your thoughts there, Keith?
It will. Absolutely. I do think there's a little bit of difference between personalities. We definitely see this in different roles. For instance, one of the roles that we're trying to hire is an account manager. I've talked about this a little bit before, but an account manager should not be a salesperson. A salesperson, if we were to look at a disc test, is going to have really high dominance. And an account manager is going to have a level of dominance, but also influence, a higher level of influence, and also compliance, which is really interesting. Compliance is the ability to listen and to hear the other person's perspective. So if someone is a really dominant personality, it doesn't mean that they can't listen to other people. It just means that naturally they don't. They want to just push their own agenda, which is why that works well in sales. Because if you combine a high dominant person who also has high influence, they can usually get people to think like they want them to think, which is interesting. But that doesn't mean that they're actually listening to the other person. So if we think about being stuck in our phones, and we think also about different personalities, some personalities, it's easier for them to listen than others. If we're stuck in our phones, we're not even giving ourselves a chance to hear the other person's perspective. And if we're out of our phones, the next step beyond that is to ask people questions and figure out where they're coming from. So no matter where your personality's at, if you're dominant or if you're influential and compliant, any of those areas in DISC and where you fall, the number one thing you can do to listen better to people is just ask them questions and be
Hmm.
genuinely interested and present. I have seen one of the most wonderful books written is They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. He's a very dominant personality. He teaches sales, and his whole thing is to just ask questions in the sales process. And I was very impacted by his presentation over at our peer group this last quarter, where as I've been thinking about and unpacking his talk, you have a guy who's really dominant, but he's overcome that dominance and just getting people to do what he wants by asking questions and seeing where they're at and then fitting the solution to their needs. And that's really the best sales that you can do is understanding where people are at and helping them along the way to get to the right solution.
Hmm.
So the best thing we can do, whether we're account managing, sales, or in life when we're interacting with people, is ask some questions. And that'll help us to be present. And it's not just about getting off of our phones and talking to somebody else. If you're not practicing asking questions and being truly interested in them, you might just be still pushing your agenda, your
Hmm.
viewpoint,
Oh, that's good.
and not really present in the relationship. So
Yeah. So that is interesting because you could think, well, I'm asking the questions, right? He's like, yeah, but you didn't really listen to what they said. And so your questions are just kind of laden with agenda, like you just said. So it's like, okay, you took a step in being present with maybe just going from no questions to questions, but now you want to go to another level of presence by the kind of questions you ask, how you listen, how you're guiding that conversation. I think that is really good. I think going from just being the answer man to asking questions heightens engagement, but I think the way you go about that, really being present there, is important. I was reading this study, like with the thing that I do with coaching, I'm always looking at studies, like what's the study on this, like
Hmm.
nutrition and health and all this kind of stuff. So I always think in terms of studies. I'm like, has there been some studies on presence in the workforce? And there are actually a few studies that were done, and one showed that this is in 2021 study that the work environments that focus on developing a culture of being fully present. They didn't use that exact terminology, but it was kind of adjacent to that um, idea. But they basically said that productivity increased by 32% in the workplace. I think that's pretty significant. And the way it increased, though, was interesting. Obviously, they said stronger engagement, better performance, just hands down. That makes sense. But the way it brought about greater performance is that first they noticed that people's stress levels decreased because they felt heard and seen and felt significant. There was a better framing for like just emotions in general, like in the workplace. But the what was really interesting to me was that obviously you have more empathy, there's better teamwork, but this created the context for two particular things that brought about productivity. It heightened creativity in the workplace. People felt, because they were being asked questions, they felt like they had a space for actually sharing how they really think. So creativity was heightened.
Hmm. Yeah.
Problem solving was sharpened. But this was interesting. The companies that really learned this, one of the reasons why their productivity grew, it was simply because their retention rate of employees was lengthened. People stayed longer. So you think about how many times, I mean, I know we were just talking about this prior to jumping on about like training new people for new roles, but that takes a long time to kind of get them to where you feel like this is productive. And the way that people tend to job hop right now, is pretty significant. So, man, you always feel like, man, I'm always feel like I'm retraining this. I feel like we get to the spot and then we lose this person. But the fully presence culture helps in a big way. It's just like this helps build our level of productivity because we're retaining the same people here longer. So that was kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah. The average training period is about 6 to 9 months in businesses for a
Wow.
new role. Yeah. That's a lot of money.
So if
So,
a business owner it would say to you like, this sounds really great, like, and you already kind of gave some thoughts here, but like, what would you be say? Like, this would be a great place to start with developing this in your work culture.
yeah. The first thing you got to do is you have to have an operational management system in your business. I didn't have one for years. And then I was introduced to The Rockefeller Habits by Vern Harsh. And that structure allows you to have the proper meetings in your business and talk about the right things in your business so
Mm.
that you can build a culture that talks about those things. So that's where I started. Where I ended up on an operational management system was actually EOS, entrepreneurial operational system. So EOS is you got to read a book, Traction, and in there he basically pulls from all these different books for your management system. And it's not only an operational management system for your business, but it's for life. There's things you can pull from it for how you communicate with people, how you think about the meetings that you have.
Hmm.
In that book, they talk about presence. You're supposed to keep people accountable for being present within that meeting, and it's tough. It is really tough. If you want to go deeper on meetings and how to do better, you want to read the book Death by Meetings by Patrick Lencioni. He is what traction pulls from, that book. There's 5 different meetings you're supposed to have within your business, and you need to integrate people into those to keep them part of the culture and herd. So one of those is the daily stand-up. Depending upon the size of your business, you don't necessarily have to have a daily stand-up. You could do one every few days, but the idea is everybody shows up every morning and they engage mentally. They talk about what's good and if they have any blockers. And the way that we did it for years is we said, okay, so what's good? Cool. Have any blockers? If you have any blockers, we're not going to discuss it right now. We'll go to round 2 where you discuss the blocker that you have with that person one-on-one. So that's what we've done for years. Very important. That way everybody's heard every morning and those blockers are addressed. Also, you don't gum up with that round 1 and round 2. You don't gum up production by getting stuck in a meeting that's only supposed to be 10 to 15 minutes by people talking about their blockers for a half hour. So very important meeting to have in your business, just one of them. But if you have the right structure of meetings, you also have to layer on the right vision, mission, core values, and make sure everybody's engaging in those. So as leadership, just like a parent, I can't remember what book it was, but there's a book that Next Level Leadership talks about. Basically, being a good leader is being a good parent. And just like a parent has to constantly remind their kids of the rules and bring them back to proper morals and how to act and all those kinds of things, a business owner has to do the same thing, or a manager has to do the same thing with employees. And the core values are what you need to have in place. And the vision and mission statement, you need to have those things in place so you can call people to that. So what you're looking for all the time within your business as a manager is you're looking for situations where something happens and you can be like, oh, that's a great example of a core value that somebody did a great job in. I'm going to use that as an example. I'm going to give them praise. I'm going to encourage them, and I'm going to use that as an example for everybody. There's also situations, and I would say often these are unintentional screw-ups, you could say, where you want to use those as examples too, not necessarily calling the person out. You want to be appropriate with that, but you want to use examples of what's not good. And one of the things that I use often is the idea of unintentional dishonesty, because one of our core values is honesty. So you have leadership, honesty, expertise. Those are our 3 core values. And I tell everybody, it's not the intentional dishonesty that's usually the problem. If you have an intentional dishonesty issue, you can't be here. What we're managing is the unintentional stuff constantly, because that is a product of systems that just aren't firing correctly. Or we promised something to somebody, but we didn't do it because we didn't have this right standard operating procedure in place. Or maybe somebody said something to somebody else, but it was forgotten. Those are all unintentional dishonesty things. And we can't give an excuse in a professional world like, oh, I forgot. Kids say that at home, right? Oh, I forgot to do my response. I forgot to make my bed. I forgot to do school. Kids say that. But in the real world, you just get fired for that kind of stuff. So we want to manage the unintentional dishonesty in our lives to uplift and be more professional and actually develop true expertise. The faster we can root that out in our lives, the faster we can become true experts. If we give excuses for those unintentional dishonesty things in our lives, then we will not excel as fast within our professional development. So that's a great way. I use that as an example to everybody. Hey, guys, it's actually positive to see the unintentional dishonesty because that means you're going to develop faster. Let's make a culture around that. And also to call each other out on those things too, because that just means we're going to grow better. And by the way, let's take it back to iron sharpens iron, right? Proverbs, was that 27:17? I might be off on that. But the proverb, iron sharpens iron. So this idea that when we call out one another, when we get to the real stuff and we're able to be vulnerable with one another and be willing to be called out too. That's so tough. That's so tough to be called out. But that is the pathway to being a better expert at what you're doing. So
there's
all of
this
those things, to build that culture of being present, you have to build it for people so then they fit in and it makes sense. And then they feel like they can thrive in that culture.
yeah
There's actually something, there's a goal to push towards, and it makes sense. Where if we were to say organizations that don't thrive, and you could, even an organization that thrives, sometimes they can lose out because of bad leadership on that focus, and then the people die. What the proverb says, where there's no vision, the people perish,
yes
right?
yeah
So the same exact way, if we do not make that vision clear, and by the way, that has to be it has to be truth. It can't be some goal that rubs against the conscience of people they know is not good. People won't do it. People just won't do it. The culture will die. So it has to be true, has to be honorable, it has to be just. Philippians 4:8. And when you do that, people, it doesn't matter where they come from, everybody's attracted to that because they're like, oh, wow, that's truth. That's truth. I want that. I want that truth in my life. It just makes sense. So
yeah
that's how you develop that presence.
So I like how you took the direction here, because you could think about, like, just when it comes to about being fully present, you think about the leader kind of cultivating presence, which is good, like in themselves and then in how they conduct meetings. But it's almost like you can't expect order to emerge out of disorder. And so if you have a whole business that's in disarray, you don't have the right people in the right seats, to use the traction.
Jim Collins, yeah.
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 And you don't have like the right, so process and procedures are not locked in. When it comes to people, you're not really sure who is the right person for the right seat. It's like you really need to get at those things. Then what can emerge from a workplace that has good systems and procedures is now we have a context for being present. And so I like how you went to, like, well, if you don't have these things in place, then just trying to cultivate presence is probably a Band-Aid to the bigger problem. You're actually not present enough to build an infrastructure for people to thrive. And so I think that was a really good, almost kind of not really deviation. It's more of like a deeper. You were going deeper there to kind of to get at fully present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the worst. If you're trying to develop presence and somebody screws up in your company somehow, and then you call them out and you say they're the problem. Most of the time, adults, they're not trying to be intentionally dishonest unless you've made them mad and they're trying to sabotage you. Everybody justifies everything. So if they are in that place, I shouldn't say everybody, well, everybody, but let's just say an average person, if they're truly trying to sabotage you, it's because you've hurt them deeply in some way. They feel like some great injustice has been done and they're deserving of sabotaging you. But most stuff that happens in a business isn't intentional sabotage. It's unintentional. So if you call them out and you expect them to carry that full burden, whether that's being present in a meeting or screwing up somewhere else or whatever, then they're going to react with that. And rightly so. Most of the time there's some truth that comes up in that moment where they feel really vulnerable because they're being called out. And they might tell you the truth. They might say something to the effect of, well, your leadership is bad. Most people won't say that. Most people want to say it, but usually it's the dominant people who can't control their mouth who say something like that. And I love those types of people because they actually give you feedback, because most people won't. And they'll give you that feedback. There's a kernel of truth in it, but the real truth is that as a leader, the first thing to do in that situation is to step back and say, this first falls on me as leaders. Does all of it fall on me? No, it takes two to tango, of course. But what happened that this culture promoted this unintentional dishonesty? What part of the system is off? If you can take that burden, it allows, first off, you're being vulnerable. So now you're an example of vulnerability, and you're opening that up for discussion from other people, and you're saying stuff like, please explain to me how we can do better. Give me some ideas, because I screwed up, guys. I have not put the right system in place. Now people feel the leadership of vulnerability in that, and the focus, and now they can provide some feedback to leadership and put that system in place. Now we're both focusing on attacking the problem instead of attacking one another. And that's that classic in the box concept with leadership and self-deception. But I see that all the time in business, where in myself, I have to constantly guard against it. But this idea of, I need to protect myself. I'm the leader. I need to protect myself. Actually, it's the opposite. As the leader, you need to be more vulnerable, which is, it feels the opposite. You're dealing with the weight of the business and the difficulty of all of it. But actually, you sit in the seat in the business as a leader of being the most vulnerable and leading in that. And you have to trust that when you do that and you're focusing on the right core values, people will follow and support. I mean, I've heard it from employees. They're like, man, I want to go to battle with you. That's amazing to hear from other people that they'd be willing to do that when you can be vulnerable. They want to be vulnerable with you. People absolutely respond to that in great ways.
Yeah, I like that. I almost feel
It's
like it
important.
shifts from like, hey, come, I'll pay you to help me build my thing. It shifts it almost to like, how do we build this together? Like, guys,
Yeah.
I don't have all the answers. I need your help.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's like, I feel like I need to rise to this challenge. I feel like I'm a part of something bigger than myself. Where I'm working is not just me going to, get some money to do what I really want to do out in life. It's like, hey, actually, my work is a meaning making kind of machine. I'm working with some guys. We're fixing this problem together, and I'm a part of fixing this particular problem. I think that, that's interesting. Vulnerability. I've never really thought about this, but vulnerability like that actually helps other people, encourages them to be present. Because now it's just like,
Absolutely.
instead of them being kind of like, I'll do my thing, but I'm really thinking about somewhere else. It's like, hey, I'm inviting you to think more deeply about this problem with me because I need your help. And it kind of hits on that spot where people do want to be a part of something, you know, but they probably don't want to be a part of something deeply where a narcissist is in charge and it's all about them.
No.
It's like when they feel like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, this is somebody that's reasonable, that listens to me, that cares for me, that's trying to accomplish this, and hey, I could be a part of that, and there's a path forward. I think that's really good. Um, I was thinking about there's this quote that says life is available only in the present moment. And I was thinking about this, like it's easy for us to have a desired future, but if we think clearly about it, the habits and the decisions and how I'm living my life, the distractions that are flooding in, if I continue to allow it to happen, it won't allow me to reach that kind of future goal that I'm trying to press towards. And but sometimes you can get really discouraged and frustrated with like, hey, I'm not making momentum. So instead of spending time building the life you want, you spend most of your time escaping the life you have. And you just it's almost like the gap between like what I want and what I'm experiencing is growing. So I'm just going to fully distract myself even further. And I think that's where a lot of men are today. It's more of, instead of I'm going to build the life I want, it's escaping the life I have. So it's almost a maximizing of distractions, and they're pulling away from like trying to do something in the work world. They're pulling away from trying to do this. And I was thinking about applying this, like even in the context of family, like being fully present. it makes a world of difference. When I go outside and I'm playing with my kids and I'm looking at my phone and I maybe like throwing a ball, looking back at my phone, answering a text, throwing a ball. I mean, my 5-year-old may not like be able to communicate it yet. But man, when I get down and I step into their world and I embody that whatever they're imagining, maybe I don't know, I'm some type of spooky monster and I'm, rah, coming to get them or whatever.
Yeah.
It just kind of playing around. That's a core memory, for them. It's like, oh, so like the difference of just kind of going out there and, just kind of letting the time pass, saying, "Hey, how can I be an engaged father?" And and I've been really trying to do this. And oh man, Keith, I fall into this so many times where I kind of take work into my time with my family a little bit. Like I'm still kind of doing work, answering the email, looking at this, answering social media, and it's like, no, I really want to have undivided, specific attention towards my boys. Play hard with them, step into their world, and and I think like one of the biggest ways, especially with younger kids, the biggest way that you can impact your kids for them to listen to you is to step into their world and play in theirs. If you play hard
Mm,
in their world, when it comes to um, them listening to your wisdom,
yeah.
they'll listen when they feel like, oh, hey, that's the person that really cares for me. They step in, they play hard, they act crazy, and but that's kind of like a little example of wow, being fully present here can change how my kid interacts with me later. When we're having more important conversations, even. So I think
Yeah.
it's just such an important dynamic for sure. I was thinking about this. Some of the most important, or let me say it this way, the pinnacle of focus and being fully present, I think, are probably athletes. Like right before they're getting ready to do something really hard, you know, they get into this crazy zone. It's like they're in the singularity. They're ready for this moment and nothing's going to pull them away. And I'll tell you, there's no way that they got to that without actually developing habits and maybe even rituals that help them get to that place. Um, they have learned the discipline of silencing the noise in an arena when everyone's screaming at them right before they do their whatever, their special act, performance, or whatever. They've learned to kind of silence the noise, focus the mind. It's like that's a discipline, that's a skill that's learned to be fully present in moments like that. Or I could think about somebody like
It is.
even in the military that has to silence themselves to make the shot, you know, whatever it is, like a sniper or whatever. It could be something like that.
Yeah.
But it's again, it's a
They
learned.
get into the zone.
Yeah, it's a learned skill. So what would you say, like, we talk about setting up the big like these big pillars to help the organizational run so that you can actually have the context of being present, but what would be some things that would help somebody like habits that would help them develop the day in day out presence, you know? Okay, you have a system down for, having conversations and what to say and what meetings should look like. Great. But you can actually do all of those things now and not be fully present. So what would be the habits of helping us get at that? What's your any thoughts there?
Oh yeah. Cornerstone habits. We've talked about that briefly, but I believe for me at least, IQ starts with my physical effort first. So we think of mental IQ, but then there's kinesthetic IQ. And I believe for me, at least, understanding the other areas of IQ, social IQ, all that starts with kinesthetic IQ for me. I think that's probably the case with a lot of people who are in sports, who are doing some sort of a sport, and maybe the case for a lot of other people, even outside of that. But I've just noticed for me, I don't get life unless I start with putting myself through some sort of kinesthetic pain. So I call that my 10-minute workout challenge in the morning.
Yes.
And that challenge is for me to get my heart rate up 120 and above. And when I get that heart rate up, it preps my mind to be open to serving and helping instead of taking and just wanting to be lazy. I kind of think another way of saying is it's like I go from my caveman and waking up my warrior in me who's ready to help. So that's called a cornerstone habit. A cornerstone habit is where you put a block in place and all the other blocks fall in place after that because you're doing the cornerstone habit. Example would be I'm working out, so I'm going to think about my diet more. I'm working out, so I'm going to think about how I'm playing the mental game of life. My anxiety decreases. I start journaling. I start being more intentional in my journaling of what I'm journaling. I start thinking about what I am doing to exercise my mind. So, for instance, I just picked up scripture memory again because I want to exercise my mind on truth and help my mind be more present and to be able to memorize. That's a present exercise. So as you develop yourself in exercising, I went from just being able to get on a stair climber for 10 minutes. Now I'm able to run at 7 miles an hour for 5 minutes, which is great. That's like a win for me. A big
Awesome.
win.
Yeah.
I was not able to do that. I was barely able to do 5 when I started about 3 months ago or 2.5 months ago. So it's really, really exciting to see that progression, but that progression flows over into other areas of life just naturally. I don't have to think about it. That warrior guy is ready to do that. So I think you have to prep yourself first. Let me say that, just like an athlete has to prep themselves before they perform. If you can't get into the zone when you're performing, it's because your practice was off. That's why. If you practice to where it's just second nature, then when you go perform, you can get into the zone and perform at a much higher level. So it's all in the practice. It doesn't matter if your form could actually be perfect form, perfect mechanics, but you're not practiced. You can have not as good a form, but play better than somebody who has better form.
Yes.
Because you just practiced. So your anxiety decreases and you're able to be in the zone.
I like this cornerstone.
One of the things cornerstone habit.
I was just going to comment on that. I like this cornerstone habit idea because like you're like, okay, if I do this one, it's going to be that domino effect. It's going to affect these other areas. And I think that's great. Like that's actually really helpful. I actually shared this morning with a client your little story about waking up the warrior and just getting in 10 minutes. But I think that's a really helpful thing because it's like, hey, my cornerstone thing it is a cornerstone. It's a big thing, but it's actually, this is pretty small, like your 10-minute workout, but it compounds because it affects so many other areas. So I think
It does.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And to do it every single day, 7 days a week. There's no rest from that. Every single day. So
would you
very
say,
important.
like to get really specific here? So we have a concept here of like this cornerstone, like discipline habit or whatever. What are you saying that people should have the cornerstone habit of working out to be fully present? Or do you think there's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good. I was thinking about even just your training when every time you do a set, what are you doing? You're fully present. Every single time you're like, okay, I'm focusing mind to muscle connection. I'm not answering text when I'm squatting. I'm not,
No.
it's like I am focused in the moment. It is actually a part of like training that you could take into the rest of your life. And you can
focus on your breathing when you're running.
Yeah. And if you
how you're breathing,
you layered that. If you had like, here's my physical discipline that helps me be fully present. Here's my, maybe some type of spiritual rhythm that you may have that's like fully present here, not distracted. You talked about adding journaling in there as well. So kind of a meditative focus. And again, when you do that in the day is really up to you, but like that could help you set yourself up. Now I know because I can be very distracted. I know this has been a problem for me. Just I want to help so many people. Then I'm like I'm wanting to do so many things, and I'm not fully present in any of them. I'm just like I'm scattered. So being fully present is a value of mine that I'm trying to work out intentionally. So at the end of my day, I have several questions that I ask, but I every single day I have a nightly rhythm where I ask, okay, where was I distracted and where was I fully present? And what can I change tomorrow to become more fully present, throughout the day? So I ask myself that question. So it kind of gets at like, okay, what part of the day was I distracted? And then I try to come up with strategies. And I do have a couple of strategies that really help me. So before I set on a task, I actually am and this may sound like so elementary, but I state like, okay, this is the task I'm trying to accomplish. And I'm not going to distract myself. I'm going to finish this task and I'll set a time limit for on that particular task. And sometimes I overestimate or underestimate the time limit it takes on a task, but I at least say setting the time for this amount of time I'm gonna put towards it. And I actually kind of reset every task. I'm like, okay, here's the next task. Gonna be focused. I have to coach myself like that, Keith, all day. Because if I don't coach myself, I'm gonna start to drift and I'll get into that like
Yeah.
afternoon time where I'm just not as productive. My cognitive function's not as high. And it's like, oh, I'm not being as productive as present. So is there anything like specific things like that that you do?
Yeah. I would say probably the Pomodoro method, which is a 30-minute window, 25 minutes, you're on task, 5 minutes, you take a break. Just something to that where you're giving your brain a break for a few minutes and then you come back and get on task again. When I want to be at my top, I think about 30-minute sprints on everything that I'm doing. And my brother and I both practiced that in college. Actually, the thing that squeezed us into practicing that the, in a huge way was when we had to do history of civilization in a summer school class.
Oh my goodness.
So
I remember that
already you're
class actually.
talking a difficult topic, lots of memorization, and we did it in summer school. So we took that and squeezed it into a month. So it was 4 hours. I think it was 2 hours of class a day or 4 hours of class a day, and we had to study for another 4 to 6, sometimes 8 hours. Well, how do you do that? That's a lot of work. Well, we use the Pomodoro method, and we also divided and conquered as well. So it was great. We could be a team. Right? Some of us were writing down cards and we're flashcarding each other and all this kind of stuff. But we use that 30-minute on and off method to study. And essentially, we're average B students, and we both got A's in that class. And people were asking us, "How in the world did you do that? Summer school, history of Civ, that's pretty hard." Well, you got to do the work, but also we use the Pomodoro method, 30 minutes, and we divided and conquered on that. And what everybody didn't see was us in our dorm room for 6, sometimes 8 hours, like I was saying, flashcarding, studying, and it was a lot of work. So
So just to
yeah,
I actually have never heard of this method before. I'm surprised because I read a lot of productivity stuff. I'm like, this is I've heard obviously breaking up in time segments, but I like this 30-minute. Sounds really super clean. So I mean, obviously if you have a lot of material, would you do like 30 minutes and then just kind of like you're like, okay, we're getting ready to go into another 30-minute segment in the same content, or would you switch out? Would it be like,
no, same content. So we would just force ourselves on a break for 5 minutes. So it's like, all right, break. Mind is on whatever. Let's be goofy. Let's just totally break and then come back to it in 5 minutes. So
okay, yeah,
it
yeah.
gives your so that means that you're looking forward to that 25 minute. Okay, it's up, and then I can just do whatever for 5. But then I'm coming back hard on another 25, and we found that to
Yeah.
be the best way to stay on track.
So it's high intense for 30 minutes and then break high intense
Yeah,
for 30. I
yeah,
like that. That's really
yeah.
cool.
High
Um,
intensity break, high intensity work.
yeah. Yeah,
So
that's really good. That's helpful.
yeah,
What do you feel like if somebody I think about the cost of things. Have you had any time in your life where you felt like, man, this not being fully present really cost me? Anything that comes to your
yeah,
mind?
yeah. So many things. So many things.
I think
Yeah,
like
and they would be often unintentional. unintentional things, trying to root out. And I think, John, to your point of taking on too many things, focusing on too many things, and thinking that you can instead of just staying focused on the main thing. That's probably where I've had the most problems. And it comes also, it flows out into different things as well. So that extra anxiety affects other areas of your life. It magnifies the characteristics that you have that are not good, which can then cause another host of problems as well.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
Well,
There's been many instances.
I know we need to close out this episode, but one thing I'll just say for those listening in is there's so many people I've talked to that have gotten to a time in their life where they realized I was present in the wrong things.
Mhm.
At least not in a way that would be balanced. Like they look at their kids and they're like, man, when my kids were really little, I was so focused on building my life, my business, my career, and I just wasn't present in their life. And the missed opportunity. And like before you start to say, I want to develop the discipline of presence, being fully present, you got to think, okay, what do I actually value? Where do I want to put my attention to? But then once you figure that out, like really be intentional. This podcast is about living an intentional life. So it's like being intentional about figuring out what do I value? Now I know where I'm placing my attention. How am I creating rhythms or even habits that fortify that attention? Like even like an athlete who practice visualization, like they before they get to the stadium, they're visualizing. What does it look like to walk in? What does it look like to when I hear the people roaring for this activity? What's it going to feel like? What's it going to smell like? They're visualizing all these things, and almost having on a day in, day out basis, or week in, week out basis, like, what do I want this week to look like? How do I show up with intentionality? And it can make a world of difference in your productivity, but also in everybody that you touch around you. And you think about legacy, we all want a good legacy, but if we're not intentional about being present, then we won't have much to speak for, and we'll have a lot of regret later in life. So this is just such an important thing. Thank you so much for listening, Keith. I appreciate our conversation. It's been fun.
It's been good. Thanks, John.
All right, see ya.